He recounted them. You can check.
I'll double, but from what I know,
But
I'm
that's
quite certain.
one man, and he was a wealthy man, and he started to believe. But listen, let's go right at the very beginning. Right at the very beginning, like what you Muslims got, you got Isnad.
Yeah, exactly, man.
But so did the Christians. They have Isnad, and they had eyewitnesses right at the beginning. You memorized the Quran. So did the Christians. There was an oral tradition. The sayings were in such a way written that you would remember it. Like today, modern day, it's raining cats and dogs. Like you know what to say. It doesn't mean it's cats and dogs. What I'm saying is they recite the Bible, the New Testament. They knew a lot of things off by heart, but they knew the sayings and the oral traditions and the eyewitnesses. And all this grew from a community of people. And they knew what was the truth. And then you get creeping in, certain things happening years later, like Gospel of Thomas. What date is that manuscript? Do you know?
I think it's second. I think they're dated by the original one, the manuscript. By the original one, because they say it's the... sorry, do you want me to answer the question? Yeah. So, they say that the way it's formatted would suggest that it can date as early as the 60th century.
Look at that, 6th century.
No, 60th. As in
60
AD, yeah.
Impossible. It's not.
No, because you remember I told you there's 4 levels of writing.
Yeah,
one is the oral tradition, which you mentioned. The other one is collection.
Check
so
Gospel of Thomas. Just check it for the argument. Check what date is the actual earliest manuscript of Gospel of Thomas. Leave it at that. But,
okay.
But there are many manuscripts where they're taken off. The Eastern Orthodox have even got, for example, the Proto-Evangelion of
Peter.
Of James, I think it is.
Proto-Gospel of James,
Yes.
Peter? No,
they've got Apocrypha, hidden Gospels, hidden things. They use them for evidences.
Then you just agreeing with what? You asked me a question on this.
No. But
you're answering.
I understand what you're saying. But what I'm saying is that the eyewitnesses to the eyewitnesses. The community there, they knew the families before, and they knew. Let me finish now, because I'm wrong. So they remember these things. They put what was together. They had to have the councils because many things people were trying to creep in. That's why. Do you know what I mean? That's why Paul, when he went to Thessalonica, went to Corinth, and went to the other, because they started to mix things up. So you're going to have these arguments at the beginning. But you're just picking one point there, one.
No, there's so much. You know, I'm just going by the questions that people ask me.
What he's saying is, for him to give you a definite answer, you have to go through the whole thing.
That's the synopsis. Now we're going to break. Every time you've asked me a question, I've tried to entertain. You've been patient.
Let me go on the roll.
Oh, you still?
Oh no, I haven't finished. When I start finishing, this took for half hour.
Yeah, I know. That's why. That's the only reason. I know. That's the only reason I'm holding myself.
People couldn't read and write in those days. Normal people. So like you go in the church, the Orthodox Church, for example. I'm saying Orthodox because all the churches there are Orthodox at the moment, So you look, you see all these icons. But on them icons, you see it all around. You ever seen it in the Orthodox Church?
Sorry?
Have you seen the icons and all these things is to teach the people the Bible because they couldn't read. This was the crucifixion. This was the resurrection. This was Jesus' baptism. This was, and you see the depictions of these things. John the Baptist, when he was beheaded. So all these things, the community knew what was going on there. Most important is something happened, the resurrection. The writings were like this, what you're saying. They don't mention more of the Christology of Jesus. Being God or being divine.
Don't mind me, my eyes are going to go here, but I'm listening to you.
But then after the crucifixion, you're seeing John, it's more Christology. He starts talking about him being a divine. You know, people, the eyewitnesses there, they saw what was happening, crucified and back to life. That's why they died martyr's death. It's not like today you could be brainwashed, for example, or whatever, you've been told this and this, and you go and do a martyr's death. There, they actually saw what happened, and they died for their belief, like the apostles did, you see. But these things will grow as a community. You're going to have, that's why we had the councils to define everything. And these critics, right at the very beginning, there weren't many critics like this, like majority critics like this to criticise what you're saying. Anyway, we can go on and on and on and on and on, but you know your critics, you've got to look at the oldest critics, look at the date of those manuscripts,
So
and they're
I'm
quite far after.
So I'll just engage shortly. Again, maybe.
Carry on.
So you know, you mentioned sanad is slightly different from
Say
what
again?
sanad. Isnad, you said isnad, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different when we have an oral tradition. We have people behind that oral tradition, and we also have another science which examines the people in each of these.
So do we.
Yeah. So
do
just
and
going
we call
back.
it holy tradition, actually.
Yeah, so-
we don't call it man's tradition. Man's tradition is different. Holy tradition is different.
So this
and
is
oral tradition.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So I can imagine a community that are oral, even proficient. But remember, we're not talking about Jews alone. When Paul preached, he preached to the Greeks who are not oral like the Jews are. So you have to understand, one holds an oral tradition, the other one does not. And plus, even if you look at the Homeric poems that we have, there's scholars differ as what the original form. Now the Homeric poems in Greek society were passed down by oral tradition.
Please forgive me 1 second. Is it okay to say something?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry,
I can't
I'm
stop you.
sorry,
I
I'm
can't
sorry.
stop you.
Don't imply that the Greeks didn't have oral tradition.
No, I just gave you one.
The manuscripts, the New Testament was in Greek. The original manuscripts are in Greek.
Yes.
Some people say, oh, Aramaic. No, you will not find Aramaic manuscripts older than the Greek manuscripts. Now you read, you can see it's from an Aramaic mind, though.
Yeah, I get to that point.
Right now, there were Greek-speaking Jews at that time, and most language, it was like
Hellenistic
English now,
Jews, yeah.
it's all Greek.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
some Greek.
So anyway, that society, they had an oral tradition, but what we know from that oral tradition, it was not like the Jewish oral tradition.
Why?
Now, because
That's very important.
let me just go on floor. So the oral tradition that we have of the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the early church fathers do describe two gospels. Papias in particular, he talks about two. If I'm correct, one of them is Mark and one of them is Matthew. They prefer the Matthean priority, meaning that Matthew was the first of the four gospels. Modern scholars say something different. You probably already know. They say a Markian priority, meaning the old church fathers believe Matthew was the first gospel to written. However, scholars generally almost unanimously agree Mark is the first gospel. Yeah.
And when did
Yeah. So this is what I'm getting to. So there's two quotes. They say Matthew was the first to be written, but they say Matthew was written in Hebrew, and then other people translated it who we don't know who.
Who says that?
Sure.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then you have to look why.
This
they're
is
saying
church fathers. This is church fathers. Two fathers. I'm not a drug dealer. Don't look at me like.
Do you know the mullahs? Sorry, the mullahs.
No, there's no
in
mullahs.
the mosque.
No, it's not mullahs.
Sometimes today they don't all agree.
So here you go. Here you go. Here.
Whatever
Yeah.
you call them, I don't know what you call them.
One second. Lola.
No, in the mosque.
Here's Papias. Yeah, this is what I said. Papias. Yeah. Matthew had collected the oracles or sayings of Christ in Hebrew. How's it going, Idris, man? Leave him, George. Leave him, George. Because you asked me where I got this from, so here it is. Yes,
I don't want you to
Papias.
carry
Yeah.
on talking because I'm going to end up being a Muslim and I'll be careful, I'm getting scared.
So then Matthew wrote the oracles.
Don't be
yeah.
scared.
Now you have to know what oracles mean as well, but in our own time.
Carry
Yeah.
on. Who's
So Matthew,
writing this? Who's
this is
writing?
Papias, church father of.
What date? Is that manuscript?
It is. But this is
It's
one.
what?
Yeah.
First century?
This is actually it's 125 to 150 is when they say. Yeah. But this is one of the earliest statements that we have on the compilation of Matthew. And why?
Eusebius before him.
He got it from the
No,
elders.
Eusebius was later, and he quotes him.
He got it from the
and he
elders.
got it from. Oh my! This is why I need Idris next to me. And he quotes. It's a conflated sanad, isnad. He claims that he got it from John the Elder. John the Elder passed it down to someone, and it gets to Papias. Then it's quoted by Eusebius.
Yeah.
So it's a conflated isnad. But anyway, he said this is why the church fathers believe Matthew was the first one to be written. But read what it actually says. So then Matthew wrote the oracles. Now people have argued oracles, same as the word logia, yeah, because there's another statement about it, yeah, which means sayings. And this is why I told you that the Gospels, the Gospels evolved in four stages: the oral stage, the collection stage, the proto-gospel stage, and the gospel stage. So the first one was the oracles, or like you said, how do you pronounce it? Logia.
The word,
yeah.
the sayings.
The sayings, yeah. So in the Hebrew language, and everyone interpreted them as he was able.
Yeah.
So one second.
But
So one second. I'll just make the point that I was asking. The Matthew we have, however, one, it's not written in Hebrew.
Exactly.
Now, one second. So the Matthew we have is not the Matthew that they were talking about was the first one written.
No.
In fact, the Matthew, one second, I'll build the argument properly. Yeah, it is based. What we understand of the Matthew in the New Testament today is based on the Synoptic tradition, which is that they're seen as the same. Optic meaning seen. Seen is like grouped together.
Yeah.
Synoptic. What are the Synoptic Gospels? Matthew, Mark, Luke. And then John is the other one, which is not the same. Irenaeus, I think he says this is known as the spiritual gospel. So John does not fall in the synoptic gospels. Now when we study the synoptic gospels, we get the synoptic problem. And what is the synoptic problem? In Luke and Matthew. Remember, Matthew is supposed to be the first one, but the problem arises, Luke, Matthew and Mark have words, ideas and sequences of those in the same order. Now Mark, 80% of Mark is found in 40% of Luke, word for word. So it cannot be simply maybe it's an opinion. They're literally copying a document, and scholars believe that document is also it's a Q document, is also written on by paper. So they say the solution is there's two source theory and there's four source theory. Yeah. So they're saying that Matthew and Luke is based on Mark, and they have another one which is called the double tradition, the Q source. Now if Matthew is the same as the Matthew Papias is saying, which Papias is saying is the first one, why is it that Matthew we have today is copying of Mark, which is not an eyewitness? And the one, no, this is what scholars say.
Yeah, that's
what this is their argument. Now the Mark one, it says, I think it's Papias as well. Yeah, if you want me to pull that out, I can pull that out. Because I've shown you everything, every time.
You're going too much.
Too fast.
And I can't take it anymore. No, we said good up to Let's hang it in there, you're very good.
So the Mark we have the Mark and Matthew we have today is not the Mark and Matthew they attested.
Let's go back. So he said it was in Hebrew, Matthew, yeah?
The oracles, or as you said, logia, which are saying.
The lawyer was written in Hebrew.
Lawyers, you say lawyer.
Yeah. Lawyer, not
lawyer, you're saying it.
So now he said Matthew's written in Hebrew, yes?
Yeah.
Where is that manuscript? The oldest manuscript is in Greek.
Exactly. That's why this is arguing my point.
1 minute. So he's claiming
the one we have is Greek.
Yeah. Hang in.
Sorry, George.
The one written the one. I go on the roll and then he cuts.
My man, you know what? I appreciate you in this conversation.
No, listen.
It's a nice conversation.
The one we're just talking, yeah? So he said it was written in Hebrew, but yet there's no Hebrew manuscript around. We don't know if there was a Hebrew manuscript. That Hebrew manuscript he's referring to is later. Because the Greek manuscript, what I know, they got fragment in Magdalene University in Oxford. And there's got fragment, Soviet, and right early, or Kyrios, the Lord, they refer to Jesus. That's a big thing. That's very big. John Stanton book, look it up, although it's been kind of refuted, but their manuscripts, hang in there.
I'm here.
What happened in 70 AD?
Jerusalem was wiped out.
Don't you think they would have mentioned that in their manuscripts?
If
big event, if they were written later on. These are all written long before 70 AD. Or as they were mentioned all this demolition in Rome. Isn't it?
Well, the scholars do suggest that.
No, forget what scholars say, man. I don't listen to scholars.
But go and build your arguments, right?
This is very important. So, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. Big event, demolish all of Jerusalem. they would have mentioned that in them documents. They don't mention it. Very quiet.
Okay, but what would be the point that you're suggesting here?
These were written down before 70 AD.
Okay.
All right, and we have fragments of them around.
Okay, let's go by this. Yeah.
The 2nd century.
So forget 2nd century.
Fragments.
Let's see what he says. Let's see. Sorry, let's see what his argument is.
My point is they're referring to a Hebrew document written in Hebrew, Matthew. That could be a Hebrew document dated later on, not there at that time.
Okay.
Now, what was the other thing we were talking about?
It was just logia or however you pronounce it. Yeah. So here, yeah. So yeah. So your point was.
Watching. No.
You're Jim.
But basically, it's a good point I'm saying. So these manuscripts must have been written before 70 AD.
So yeah.
And there are fragments, a lot of arguments to prove about them. So there was a church father. It's not Eusebius, then it was someone else. Show me the Primer, the younger. Harold.
Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, from John. This is the one.
What date is that? There was one.
He gives the isnad which you are talking about goes to John there.
But they said that there's no reason why we shouldn't believe the Gospels. The names attributed to those Gospels.
Okay, let's deal with one. Let's do one because we're talking about Matthew. Now here what we have, and it says the logia, which are sayings. That's exactly how we know that the first process of Jesus' statements were in the formation of the Gospels. There were sayings, collections, proto-Gospels, and then Gospels.
Talking to us and we wrote them sayings down. That's why he spoke. Sorry to go on. I'm sorry.
No.
That's why he was saying in rhymes. Not rhymes, like
poems and
the way he spoke.
Yeah, alliteration.
Story and all that. So we knew, and we all write them down now. And then we come in, we give it to people.
I got that.
So who knows what to put there?
Okay, excellent.
It was great from all the community who agreed to put them down.
Yeah, excellent. So now we have Matthew. And this is what the argument for Matthean priority is, that it's the earliest gospel, and the basis of that is this statement from Papias, which comes in Eusebius, and that's the reason that the church fathers believe in. Now you can say no, that's wrong, but this is what you based your whole argument on. Don't listen to modern scholars say. So it's like you're shooting down your own argument. I'm saying that modern scholars are saying that you have this synoptic problem. Mark is the first one according to them written, but the older scholars say Matthew is written first, and the reason they say Matthew is written first is because of this statement. And even when you look at the word sayings, this is exactly what we know of how the Gospels were made, so it makes sense. But however, the Matthew we have now is not the Matthew they had. The Matthew then, I've got you, man. Okay. The Matthew then, was written in Hebrew. The Matthew now, one second.
It's just because he mentions it.
Yeah.
And yet there's no.
Well, do you not believe what they said?
We've got, I told you, in Magda University, there's fragments there.
He's a church father.
Yeah, he's a church father, and this is this is your argument.
All church fathers don't agree.
But George, this is your argument. George, this is your argument. This is your argument. You see. This is not my argument. My argument with modern scholars, we look through language and understand through corpus linguistics and stylistics and the study of language. First gospel is Mark. Thereafter Mark is Matthew and Luke. This is called the Markian priority. Yours is the Matthean priority based on what the church father says. And what the church fathers said is this. But if you doubt this, then you shoot down your whole pack of cards, or house of cards comes crumbling down, which I don't mind anyway. And then not only that, you have the statement of Mark as well. They say the same thing of Mark. Mark wrote down the logia of Peter. Now again, what we have, and he says he wrote it in any order. If we find the quote, when you have time at home, maybe watch the videos and find that statement in regards to the first Mark that we have. It's not the Mark that we have today. The Mark of that time, if you read what it said, it was just sayings in an unordered, because this is the way that Kirai or something, I'm not sure about Greek, Peter spoke in Kiro or something, and Mark wrote down in an unassembled order. So read exactly the same word, because I don't want someone to say, oh, that's not exactly how it said it. And you see what the Mark we have though is an order. And not only is it just Kiro or Logia, it's also a narrative, meaning that the Gospel of Mark we have today is not the Gospel of Mark they had before. And this is not something strange. The church fathers Yeah, the church fathers, they mentioned all the differences. Like we always mention this difference, yeah? Like when in the John 17 verse 3, it's eternal life that you should know the one true God and Jesus Christ who he sent. We know church fathers could not...
Stop there. This is very important. Please dig into this one.
Yeah.
We believe in one true God and Jesus Christ. The Greek, if you know the Greek, and I'm not claiming now I know this, but I heard it from proper scholars, Greek professor scholars, that end, A-N-D, the way it's said in that context, doesn't mean, oh, there's God and there's Jesus. It means they are one as one. It means as one. So now, explaining all this, I can't tell you.
Okay.
But you look at that.
Let's move to because we talked a lot of this. I could keep going. You can hear that. Let's talk about this one. Let's talk about this one. 17 verse 3. Yeah. This isn't the only place in John. If you read in John 5 verse 43, it speaks about Father being the only God. So it's not the only place. Even if we read at the head of every Jesus, this is what Paul says, yeah? And this is the difficulty. You have Unitarian Christians who are looking at the Bible.
That's why I'm going to stop you there. That's why I believe it's not. John came later, yeah?
The Gospel of John you're talking about? Yeah.
What you're talking about here is what, from where?
Oh, this is from Paul's writing, which is the earliest.
Yeah, but John's come after. Why?
Yeah. Oh, you're going? Yes.
They don't. Nice to meet you. That's why, after the crucifixion, they weren't too much the Christology, but the divinity of Jesus. After the...
All right.
You ready next week?
I should, yeah.
After the crucifixion, they weren't talking too much about the divinity of Jesus so much. After the crucifixion and all that, after you get John, more about the Christology, they knew about the divinity more about him. But listen, you're going into
my last opening. This is your. This is the point. So you have 4 Gospels. We believe is Mark. Then you have Matthew, Luke. Then you have John. John is written around the year 90 in Ephesus. Ephesus is Turkey, as you know, next to Greek, and it's in the Roman Empire, the Byzantine part of the empire. So now, who was ruling in the Byzantine? I'm getting cramps here. Who was ruling in the Byzantine? Cramps here. Who was ruling in Ephesus at the time the Gospel of John is? We can't divorce where the context of the Gospel of John was written. Domitian is the emperor. Domitian, Suetonius, who was a Roman historian, he says Domitian by decree told the people that you should call me my Lord and my God. And this is the same statement we find in John. And John also, I'll skip that, it's going to go too much. Yeah. So John is written much later on, and it reflects the beliefs of the Romans and the Greeks. When Mark is written, Matthew is written, and Luke is written, which is the early one, they don't mention I am the way, I am the truth, I am the light, before the I am, this and that. These I am statements, as you know, are unique only to John. But if Jesus had said it, we would expect the earliest strata, Mark, even the ones before like L, M, Mark, or the Passion stories, before even the Gospel was compiled, to have these, but we don't have these statements.
Wouldn't you expect it to be, when the Gospels were written, like after the resurrection, you would have them talking about the divinity more? They knew more.
So we have to know where these Gospels were written. So John was written in the Roman Empire. Now, as you know, Caesar was seen as God. After his death in the year 42, through a process of apotheosis, where the Senate gathered and they gave Caesar divine honors. So Caesar went through the process of voting or apotheosis, and they exalted him from a man to say he was God. We have coined
God, not the God.
Divus. Yes, good man.
Whereas
Divus.
in Matthew, they refer to Jesus.
This is a good point.
Oh, Kyrios, the Lord.
Not curious. It wasn't curious. It was
Matthew. In Matthew.
This Matthew for Jesus. Yeah, but I'm talking about Caesar. It was Divus. this diva, you know, she's a diva, or you know, divas, yeah. So this is where man becomes God, and Caesar was seen as this a process of apotheosis, and this is look how quick. 2 years after the death of Caesar, he was given these divine attributes, of being God. His son Augustus, or adopted son Augustus. We have coinage. Flip it. It says it says, one second. It says the son of God, and then later in the life of Domitian, who is where we're talking, he didn't say that he was a man that became God. He said he is Deus, the God. Yes, the God. And this idea of apotheosis, and it's called the imperial religion of Rome. Do you know about the imperial religion? One second, I haven't finished the thing. The imperial religion of Rome. Do you know about this? Because we have to understand where John is written. Imperial religion of Rome is where they take men and make them gods, like this Caesar, like Augustus, like Domitian. So when John is writing, he's competing with the Roman belief, that man can become God.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah, sure. He's very good, by the way.
Justin Martyr.
Do you mind if I give you these? I've lost one away. I'm going to stand here but listen to you. But
No. I'm just going to say this because it's in line with what you've said about how the Hellenistic world influenced Christian theology. So this is the apology of Justin Martyr, and it was written at the time to the emperor at the time. I can't recall his name. Superiority of Christianity to paganism. This is Justin Martyr.
His apology. This is called the apology. Justin Martyr's apology.
In saying, so this is the confluence between the Hellenistic belief and Christianity. In saying that the Word, who was the first offspring of God, was born for us without sexual union as Jesus Christ our teacher, and that he was crucified and died after the rising again, ascending to heaven, listen to this, we introduce nothing new beyond what of those whom you call sons of Zeus. You know how many sons of Zeus, and the writers whom you honor speak of? Hermes, the hermeneutic word, and the teacher of all. Can you read that? That's Greek. Asclepius, who was also a healer after being struck by lightning and ascending into heaven, as did Dionysius, who was torn in pieces. Heraclius, who to escape his torment threw himself into the fire. Dioscuri, born of Leda and Perseus, of Diane and Bellerophon, who thought of human origin, rode on the divine horse Pegasus.
I'm gonna jump on that.
I need to mention Ariadne and those who like her, who said to have been placed among the stars. And what of your deceased emperor, whom you regularly think worthy of being raised to immortality, introducing a witness who swears he was the cremated Caesar
who saw that he swears he saw the cremated Caesar attending into heaven from the funeral prior.
So nothing new.
It's nothing new. So this is apology. So let me just explain. So I know you've been patient. Now Justin Martyr is writing very early, as you know, and he's writing an apology to the pagans. The pagans, this is called the apology. He wrote 3 letters. One of them is a letter to Tripod the Jew, and then there's 2 apologies, but we only have one of them. This is one of the apologies. He's saying what you say of Jupiter and the sons of Jupiter is no different than what we say of Jesus, meaning that it shouldn't be strange to you. In the same way, Caesar as well rose from the death and was taken up to heavens. Jesus was consumed into the heavens. And scholars like Timothy Freck and Peter Gandhi, they write a book, and it's called The Jesus Mysteries. And they mention these quotes of this scholar and another scholar. My brain is not working at the moment. But he claims, what you see of Jesus in the traditions that preceded Jesus in paganism was by the devil, who went into the future. It's called diabolical mimicry. The devil went into the past, copied and pasted from pagan stories and reproduced that. The other way. He looked. Exactly. So the stories that we have,
and this is the Hellenic influence.
So this is what they argue. They argue now the story that you have. There's nothing different of Jesus than what we have of our gods, of the son of Jupiter and Dionysus.
In a nutshell, the Hellenes, the Greeks, all their gods and their attributes, or many of their attributes, they invented this Jesus and added all the attributes to Jesus.
Why are you not Muslim?
Yes, this is what you're saying.
Yes.
See what I mean? This is what makes me sad, man.
Don't be
It
sad.
makes me sad. You guys are intelligent people, man.
Well, there's no answer.
And because this
got
Justin
tissues.
Martyr
Emotional.
said this,
Huh?
just
Emotional.
don't
Yeah, that's it.
don't say
Intellect.
that. Wait a minute, bro.
Sorry, George.
We are ignoring. You realise what you've just done? You've ignored from Genesis, all those thousands of years up to when Jesus was born and crucified, died and resurrected. All those hundreds, literally hundreds of prophecies, ignore all that.
What, like God will not be a man?
Ignore all the people that were there, the eyewitnesses supposed to be. Ignore the other one.
You're moving from the topic.
One minute, ignore the eyewitnesses that saw and died martyr's death, and the apostles died in the martyr's death.
Oh, we could talk
Ignore
about those.
all that and just listen to Justin Martyr say, no, they were influenced the Greeks, and
happy.
that's
No,
why they
no.
added it to.
Imp-
What day?
Irenaeus.
It's
And
not-
what day was that manuscript written?
Yeah.
You need to find a physical date of that
Yeah,
manuscript.
this-
And even if he said that, just because he said that, it doesn't mean that. It's like me saying, yeah, the Muslims are blah, 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 blah.
not
just
And
a
you
martyr,
see
George.
that. You can't.
George,
Wow,
George,
It's a good
yeah,
answer.
yeah,
Good
yeah.
I hope the camera's
George,
behind
you just a Greek man in speaker's corner at 8:20.
Yeah,
And then
You're not
George,
just
what
a
I'm
martyr.
telling you, it was actually it's better discussion. It wasn't so acrimonious
nice, more
and everything.
respectful.
Yeah,
nice.
respectful.
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you know what? I learn a lot myself.
Yeah.
But where
But-
can I see
but listen.
all this shit you're telling me? No, where can I get all this information?
It's all there. You know
Just
how
stick it
everything.
there.
Watch the camera, pick up the words he said, and just research.
Yeah, exactly. Letter to Tripod the Jew, apology of Justin Martyr, Acts, Galatians, which you already
All right,
know,
I know,
Suetonius, you know all
What
the
is this? Are we being filmed now?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, no.
Should be. Well, that's why I assume that's why
Anyway,
I've
it's all
got
good,
taken.
man.
But you need to
We're all
become.
learning. We're good.
George, you need to become. Have you got Quran?
I'll
Born in
read it.
September
man.
with you.
Huh?
September still. Oh, what day is
I'll
September?
find out.
Huh? All right, good.
Have you got Quran? I can't leave you
I've
just
got-
talking
I've got
about Christianity
Quran,
wrong.
man. I'll read the Quran
So
somewhere.
worship one God,
I do
no
worship one-
divisions,
I do worship
no
one God.
man, no spirits,
1 minute.
no
One
sticks,
minute, 1 minute.
no stones, no Buddha, no none of this. Worship one God,
I
the God
worship-
of Jesus.
I worship one God.
That's good. If it's
And
true.
and I do submit my head to the floor.
Good man.
I submit myself to God.
Ah.
You can call him Allah, you can call him God, doesn't matter.
Allah, yes.
It's one label we've given. We believe in one creator. And I submit my
With
heart.
partners though, George.
And I love human beings. Say I'm a Christian, you're a Muslim. This creator created you and created me. And to respect him, I have to respect you.
Yeah.
And I also believe what it said in the Bible. Love God with your heart, your mind, with your soul, and also your neighbor.
Yeah.
So you have to respect
I get that.
everybody.
My invitation. Sorry.
So who's God? Because Jesus said, "Your God and my God."
Jesus.
So do you worship Jesus as God with all your heart? Because Jesus had a God
Jesus is the Son of God.
and God.
And God and the Father. Jesus is the Son of the Father.
Your Father, my Father, your God and my God. So Jesus has a Father and a God, but is God as well.
Yeah.
Oh, you know that doesn't
Yep.
make sense.
And this Jesus, young boy, how old are you?
I'm on camera, man.
Oh, you're a woman, man.
Yeah.
I'm 61. What am I worrying about? I'm not
You look
worried.
good, man. You look good.
How old are you?
Huh? I'm
You don't have to answer.
Yeah.
30 years old boy going around and he's God. And we're supposed to believe it. Going to the toilet,
He's not, that's why.
he's drinking some wine,
Exactly.
and we got to believe he's God.
No, we don't.
Oh, exactly. Now,
My man.
he prayed to God. One
yeah,
minute,
he prayed to
and
God.
I believe he was God, praying to God.
Subhanallah.
But you just said how
Don't
can a
make it
30-year-old
La
man
hawla
can be
wa la
good?
quwwata illa
Huh?
billah.
How you just said how can a 30-year-old man be drinking
Exactly.
wine
So
and
all
be God?
these things, yeah? Right. So rational and human
But
logic
it's
is
not
very
rational.
hard, isn't it?
But if we don't use rational and human logic, what should we use?
There's divine logic. Let me tell you, in the Bible it said, what is impossible for man is possible for God.
And what does that mean?
Now, if I know God exactly how he is, it means my mind is bigger than God. How can we know exactly how he communicates to
I'll
the
be
people?
honest.
Through how God
It's
tells us
not
he is.
easy.
Through how God tells us he is.
I'll cut
if-
the
right.
fork, knife through the fork, yeah? Jesus said on the cross, according to the book you're saying is divine and everything, that, oh Lord, oh God, why have thou forsaken me?
Yes.
We know, so he's forsaken.
It's his human
We
side
know,
speaking. It's his human side speaking.
But what does he? This one say? Every reply there's a reply. Every action is a reaction.
Tell me.
Why did his human side get subdued the divine side?
Explain, please.
Why is it that every time Jesus says that something like, I don't know the hour, or he grew in wisdom, or that he's crying, or he has passions, it's a human side. But why is it that the human side is subduing the divine side? Shouldn't be the divine side subdued? Because what you go
Hang in there.
Yeah, so what would it
When he was walking on the water, and he stopped the wind, and he got
miracle.
earth, and he cured his eye. I wish you was here now. But anyway. Right? Just like in Genesis, God got from the earth and made man, yeah? So when he done this, was he subduing his human side subdued?
Elijah done that.
He was his divine there.
George,
Tell me.
there were two narratives of the blind man. I think it's Luke and Mark. What's mentioned at the ending of Mark is not in Luke. In Mark, the people are in awe, and they go, he's committed this miracle with the authority from God.
Yes.
So the gospel says that some of the miracles Jesus performed, bi'idhnillah,
Of course.
through God.
And he even
So it
said,
negates his divinity.
and he even said, the Father is greater than I.
Listen, this is all barriers. Just become
Stop.
Muslim.
No.
Make it. I'm tired. I'm so
No,
tired.
no, you're not
I'm
tired.
so. I've been here for a minute.
Yes,
Become
yes.
Muslim.
No,
Stop
let me
all of
finish
this
my
mental
point, 'cause
jinns.
you're going to cut one clip and say,
No, they won't do that.
No.
And
Look,
Jesus
you're not.
said-
I like you. You're a nice guy. You're a nice guy.
Jesus said-
Stop all this mental
The
gymnastics.
Father was
Just
greater
worship.
than I, but he also said, the Father and I are one. All right?
But he
And
said
it
that
was
to the
tongue.
disciples.
So was it
In
contradicting
John
himself?
17, the disciple, you are in me as I am the Father. So are the disciples now God using that logic? The answer is no.
will talk more.
So that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
Jesus said the head of man is Christ, and the head of Christ is the Father, God. There's a hierarchy. Worship the God that Jesus worshipped, and you will get to heaven, inshallah. Anyway, I want you to
And
be
it's the-
Muslim.
it's
I
called
really
the
want you
Father.
to be Muslim.
Anyway,
nice
The Father,
being
yes. Yeah, good.
September, you don't know yet.
Off.
Is it a big operation?
Oh Allah. Say something. So that was a very long and very complex discussion about the Bible, about apocalyptic, apocryphal material. We just finished off on Jesus having a father. It's clear indication that Jesus cannot be God, because he says in John 17:3, the one true God. He says it in John 5:4-3, the only God. We find that Jesus prays to him. We're not talking even about his humanity, because we know he's subject to the Father. In the end times, everything will be subject to the Father, including the Son. We see on the earth that Jesus did not know things. When he was asked about the last hour, Jesus did not know. He said, no one knows the hour except for the Father. Only the Father knows. If only the Father knows, why doesn't the Holy Spirit know? Anyway, these are theological discussions that need to, maybe George could have gone into detail. What we were speaking mainly about is scripture and authenticity of the four Gospels. Do you want to say anything, is this?
Barakallahu feek.
Yeah, barakallahu feek, man. Thank you. Oh, sorry guys, really tired, man. Jazak Allah Khair, bro.